Hey everybody, Jamey Jordan here, and we're here for our second episode of Between Two Bead Rollers, and we got our special guest, Steve. Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself and everything that's going on.
Thanks, Jamey. Totally stoked to be here today. My name is Steve Friesen. I'm from Wichita, Kansas, 36 years old, and I'm just happy we're gonna sit down and bead roll and do a little bit of chatting.
Yeah, it took 6 takes for me to be able to say his last name, so I just went with Steve. So
I got it covered though.
you got us going. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna sit and kind of practice a little bit and talk and have a little fun. We've got I've got a circle panel here, and one of the things that I always recommend everybody do is circles. And
Circles. I got a lot of circles. I've already started rolling on these, so there's a little bit going on already. But I'm gonna roll some more circles on top of these circles
while we're warming up. Yep. And our last episode, we mentioned that we were going to give away the panel that I was rolling, which was this Cadillac piece. And Jeff, tell me if the camera can see it good. I don't know if we can see it. Up, down. Jeff's giving me directions. But okay, so this one's for you guys. Jeff's going to figure out how he's going to get it to you. He'll put it in the description. Somebody will be able to get this panel at the end of this video, and he'll tell you how to do it. And a little bit, I'm going to roll this panel. And Steve's got him a pretty cool little truck over here. He's going to roll too.
A little bit of square body love.
There you go.
I've got one of these home, so
yeah,
I was excited about that.
So I'm gonna give this one away as well. So we'll figure out how to get this one done in the next video. So there we go. All right, so
now we're getting loose. It's flowing.
Let's just sit down and see what we come up with. What rolls you got over there?
I've got stencil dies, 2 of them.
How do you got your gap? You got it pretty close together?
Yeah, right now I'm running a pretty tight gap, maybe 100 thousandths.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
Okay. So whenever you're running these things, obviously ours have adjustable shafts on the end of them.
Yep.
Some don't. You can use washers or spacers in any way, but when we talk about this stuff, we're gonna ask each other, how far is your gap? That's gonna refer really how wide is the bead, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And
whether you're nice and tight, a real tight step, or whether it's going to have quite a bit more, almost a ramp to it.
Exactly. And then we're also going to talk about pressure. Pressure's going to come from up here, and that's one of the other problems. And then we're going to just go over. So if you hear us talking about pressure, or how's your pressure, or how's your gap, that's what we're going to be referring to as we go in and out on this. Yep. And then I'm definitely going to have to be changing a few things. I know you'll be really messing with a lot on that truck.
Yeah, I'll be changing gap quite a bit.
Yeah. So, and we both chose spoiler rolls. Stencil rolls. I say spoiler, sorry. But we both chose stencil rolls. I like the stencil roll because it's so small and it has that small contact patch, and you can spin so easy on it.
I'll tell you what, I think if anybody was going to buy a bead roller and they needed to know what rolls to get, these are literally the workhorses of almost everything to me. It'll do what a step roll will do. It'll do smaller than what a step roll will do. It'll do curves, it'll do soft lines, hard lines. I mean, it'll literally almost do anything. It's so versatile.
Yeah, it took a long time to try to get that right profile and try to get what we needed, to do.
It's perfect.
But now that it's there, I mean, once you really get used to it, it's really going to be the workworkhorse, like you said, of your collection of dies or whatever it is you do have, and how you shape.
It's like I told you earlier, I got the art roll kit that comes with them, and I'll use the step dies and stuff occasionally, but I'm literally already on my 3rd set of stencil rolls. And it's not because they wear out quickly, it's because I've literally just abused them, whether it be on steel or aluminum or whatever the case may be.
How many miles do you think you got on those guys?
Dude, I wish.
Give the average.
We need a mile. We need an odometer on these.
I know. Everyone's always saying that. But I mean, if you think about it, I mean, how many miles do you think you, as a consumer, put on your stencil rolls? Because it's a big question. Everybody wants to know. They say, hey man, it's plastic. It's not going to work. I'm going to tear it up. But for a guy like how versus, think about your average use. Think about what you're doing.
Man, I wish, I almost feel like I got to get back to you on that, but I wish there's got to be a good way to figure that out, but it is a lot of miles. And it's almost like they're gonna last as long as you let them. It's just like a car. Being that they are, a plastic material, nylitron, you can damage them.
Yes.
If you take if you take a die that you typically use on steel and then you take it to a nice polished piece of aluminum, you're probably going to notice that it was there.
Exactly.
You take and you run this thing off the edge of a panel 100 times, you're going to notice that you did it.
Yeah.
But if you take care of it,
yeah,
dude, they are durable and they will last and last and last.
They will. And I have a little blade, or just take my pocket knife out, or whatever I need to, and then I'll just clean up the edges. If I get a little mark, a little burr on there, and then I have a little 3M, little Scotch-Brite pad, little foam ones that you can sand with, and I'll stick them in there and just turn it on and just go and just let it clean them up. But
I was wondering about that, and that's good to know.
It cleans up that debris that will build up, Sharpie marks and things like that.
Sharpie marks.
Build up. So that is a tip for you guys if you do have a lot of bead rolling that you're doing, and your Sharpie is just all over your stuff, and it will just start printing on your bead roller. Just take one of those Scotch-Brite pads or something and stick it in there, just hold it in there, and then just give it the gas. We'll turn this one on and make it run. Just stick it in there and let it go, and it'll just clean these marks right off of it.
And the other thing that I've noticed, especially when you use the steel tipping die and you do outline work, which is one of my favorite things to do, when you run over those lines with the stencil die later, sometimes you'll notice little specks of that material that it'll pick up, and getting some of those out of there, that definitely helps. When it starts picking that stuff up, it'll tell you real quick. When you go in and you start going around corners, it'll leave little tiny scratch marks, and it'll let you know, it's time to give these things a little bit of love, clean them up.
Clean them up a little bit.
But as far as durability goes, you're not going to hurt these. I mean, I've rolled 16 gauge steel with these things, and it took a while. It took a lot of passes, but they'll hold up to it. They'll do it.
They'll hold up. Well, cool. Let's just roll a little bit. We're gonna do some circles. I like to do circles when I practice. I like to do them going one way, and I like to go them the other way, because sometimes when you're making a bend, you have to turn the opposite way, which way you're comfortable with.
And if you're not careful, I mean, I get real complacent about always trying to turn one direction just because I can see better.
Exactly.
So if I force myself to work in other directions at times, it definitely makes it a little bit easier for me. Because eventually
you will have to.
Yeah, I mean, and one of those things that I've noticed, it's kind of like riding a bike. When people are learning, and I was the same way, I would never have the speed on this machine up past, it goes in basically a percentage. I'd never have it up past 10.
Yeah.
Because it was just too fast for me to control. And then as you do more and more and more of it, you'll start to notice that you'll get faster and faster and faster.
Yeah. And you'll find ways where things become more comfortable, and you can reach over there and turn the dial up or turn it down as you're running things. And the purpose of going a little bit slower on some things, makes a little bit more sense. And that's the neat thing about having the variable speed on the industrial machines that we have. So that and the variable speed in the pedal, so you can still have that little bit of play, but you can turn it all the way down and still step on the pedal flat.
Yeah,
and have that control.
Once you really learn how to control that pedal, you've got so much adjustability, so you're not very frequently touching that dial at all unless you're doing, when I go to a tipping die and I go to outline, I'll usually run it at a little bit slower speed. But, and there's times slower is not always better. I've found, a lot of long straight lines, if you don't find a happy speed that you can book right along, you end up a little bit more wobbly, I guess is the best word, that I would say, than if you were just trucking right along.
And a steel tipping die is one of the best tools to use. If you want to learn how to become precise, become accurate.
I would call that my second favorite die out of everything, and it will teach you pressure. For sure. It definitely pressure, and it will teach you what you can and cannot do, because that thing has no mercy.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, once you've figured out how to master outlining with the tipping die, and I can't say that I have, but I'm working real hard at figuring it out.
Yeah, it's definitely a passion.
You're on top of the world once you figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, you just feel like the control that you have and that you've gathered inside yourself. So if you do, that is a recommendation of mine, and as Steve's as well, just to do that. Just to try to, if you have a steel die, just a regular tipping. When I call tipping dies, really, even this thing could be considered more of a tipping die. I mean, it's just a reference to a die with a sharp tip on it. And when you're using that sharp tip and you're following that line and you're actually drawing for the first time, it's a startling experience, you know?
Yeah.
And it's one thing to goof off and kind of spin things around, but when you actually try to draw a letter or try to draw with that thing and you realize that once that mark's in it, it's in it. There's no taking it out.
Yeah, there's no erasing on aluminum.
No, there's not. And you know, then you start to respect, you know, the time that it takes to be able to do that accurately. And I always like to tell people, try it at first. Try things like that. Try the weird things.
Yeah, whatever works. There is no right and no wrong. And that's one thing that I've noticed. I mean, you get two people together that can both do this really well, and you'll find that they have wildly different approaches, and they may be able to come up with the exact same result and do it two completely different ways.
Exactly.
That's why whenever people ask me questions, because you know, I get a lot of people that message me and ask about stuff, and I really like to see people understand it. So I take the time and try to teach whoever I can. But just to see what they come up with, and they may find a little bit different way. But I guess what I'm getting at is, I always try to preface it like, I've got buddies that do this differently and they're better than me. This is my take on it. Take it with a grain of salt, because there is no wrong way. I'm going to tell you one way that I know how to get it done. Hopefully you can find a different way. Who knows?
Exactly. I mean, it's a beautiful way to put it. And there's no right or wrong to any of this stuff. And I know when I first started rolling, you know, 10 or 12 years ago when I was doing this, there wasn't a lot of people out there, so I didn't have to deal with a lot of people telling me it was right or wrong, you know, or really having an opinion about it too much. And so I would, you know, the comfortability of just kind of going for things or just trying for it. And, you know, that really helped me out a lot.
And I think it's still kind of, to a lot of people, it's a little bit of a black magic. So there's still not too many people that are going to tell you did that wrong.
Exactly.
It's
it's however you want to get to that end result, you know, whatever it is you're looking for. And as artists and as people, no matter if you're just bead rolling lines around, you know, around the thinner tub, because that's all the car needs and that's what you're here for, you know, and that's what the job requires. I do a lot of jobs where it's just going to be a few lines here or a few lines there, and that's it. We're done. I'm calling it a day. But you know, because that's just what the job requires.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
If you're doing that type of work, just taking the time to just be able to be creative, even in that setting. You know, all this stuff still matters, even with that. You know, even with just the little things, even if you're not trying to do artwork or anything fancy.
Yeah. Well, and that's another one of those deals that I really love about stencil dies. You know, a lot of people that do just simple beads, traditional beads, like, you know, your average person would think of when they think of a bead roller. They use a regular beading die. It's got the male and female die, and that's what they use to run around. And I do a lot of those real simple panels that may just have a border or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it all with the stencil die. And granted, I have to make two passes. I got to go one way and then the other, instead of, you know, just running right through it. But the fact that I can change the depth and I can change the width, and I can make it a little bit wider halfway down if I want to.
Right, you can
fade it.
Change the profile of it, and a lot of that comes from the adjustable shaft as well.
Yeah.
Into your machine.
And the fact that you can do that, it'll take what is already, it may be a simple panel, but you can take it from being a basic simple panel to something that actually looks really impressive.
Yeah.
Just by making a few little changes.
And I mean, and that's the race car guy. That's the guy that just wants to put something in the floorboard. It's still available. You know, you still have that option.
Yeah.
Having fun with that. You know, when you're not trying to do something to sell or to make artwork, or just being able to open up patterns like that, it really helps a lot. And it allows you to mimic something that's actually from the factory too, a lot easier.
I do a lot of that, and sometimes I find myself doing that even just on the artwork. One of the things that I spend a lot of time doing, it seems that I do somewhat realistic replications of cars and stuff. And going in there and looking at a photo and seeing what the body line looks like, and then taking the time to figure out, okay, how can I mimic the way that body line actually runs, so that somebody looks at it and they notice. They're like, oh wow, that body line matches what the real car would be, and it's just on a piece of aluminum. So, you know, there's times that I'll take like the black Mittler soft wheel, and I'll go over, you know, I'll have it on top and I'll have a stencil die on the bottom, and I'll run underneath the panel just to take and pop a light raise in a panel. I did one for a friend of mine, Hargett Automotive. They've got a Pro Mod second gen Camaro, and you know, they have that real light body line down the center, and the top and bottom, they almost just kind of roll one way, and they've just got that one light line down the middle. That's what I ended up doing, the black soft wheel on top and the stencil die on the bottom, and I just ran down that line, and I kept running down it and looking at it and running down it. And by the time it was done, it literally looked like the side view of a second gen Camaro. It was perfect.
Because you pushed it up the right direction.
Yeah, and just paying attention to, you know, some of those things. They have reverse curves, they've got normal curves, they've got points that turn into soft rolls, and you've got to make those changes on the fly, but that's half the fun, is just mirroring what you see in real life.
Well, I'm gonna start on the C10 panel here and kind of get going and see what we can get moving on that. How much more you think you got on that? You about good there?
I'm gonna zip around this outline one more time.
All right.
And then I'm gonna jump onto that panel too.
Okay, so we're gonna move on forward, and I'm gonna probably start with the bumper here first, and then we'll get into that, and then Steve's gonna tell us a little bit about him and where he's from and what he's about and where his shop is and what he does and all that wonderful stuff. So we're gonna move into that. Right on. All right, guys, so we're back on these panels. I'm gonna roll this truck front end, and he's gonna do his, and we're gonna see what we come up with here in a second. I've got my stencil rolls on here, like we've been talking about.
Yep.
I've got my gap kind of close and right where it needs to be. And for me, I like to kind of settle in and just find some lines to really go after, and just make some big bold statements at first and try to decide where things are gonna go. And while we do that, hopefully you share with the people and share with me a little bit about you and your story and about what got you here and what's going on.
It's very unrehearsed, but I'm gonna do my best to kind of tell a little bit of where it all started.
Where it all began.
Where it all began.
All right. So we're gonna start, hopefully not in infancy, right? But we're gonna move forward. Okay.
Now you know, what got me here in doing this is kind of twofold, really. It has to do with hot rods, and it has to do with art.
Okay.
And the hot rod portion of it was really kind of instilled probably at birth. I mean,
birth.
My dad and I have one brother. My dad and my older brother. He's 12 years older than me. You know, that's what they did, and so I didn't really have much choice probably but to get into it. It was just natural.
Wonderful. Well, I mean, that's wonderful. I mean, a lot of people would love that, you know?
You know, and my dad was kind of the one that started the whole deal. My grandfather was a doctor. He wasn't into cars at all.
Okay.
He actually bought my dad a fairly nice car when he was learning how to drive so that he wouldn't build a hot rod.
Uh-oh.
And he went behind his back to his grandfather and bought a hot rod anyways.
Uh-oh.
You know, so that it's long before me that any of it really started.
Sure, sounds like it.
But I was the only one that was kind of blessed with the ability to do art.
Okay.
And so I've kind of taken it beyond, really, and incorporated both of those things sort of together.
So you were the artiste in the family, is what you're telling me?
Yeah.
So your other brother was mechanic more, gearhead kind of guy? Or
you know, it's funny. They're both, you know, my dad's retired now. They're both in the medical field.
Okay.
But gearheads, and I was the one that, now sadly, I was the one that didn't make near as much money, but I'm the artistic one, and that's just the way it's worked out.
Well, you've enjoyed your time, and I think this is a good opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about what you do. What do you do for a living?
You know, I just work in a dirty old fab shop for a living. This is kind of where I find my peace. You know, my whole life, like I said, has been artistic. When I was a little kid, if it was a piece of paper, it had flames drawn on it or a hot rod drawn on it.
Yeah, I can relate.
And I got into, you know, I've done airbrush stuff, and I've done pinstriping and anything of the sort like that. None of it really ever stuck. And strangely enough, when I decided to start playing with a bead roller, this has been the one thing that is just, I don't know, it's affected me a lot more than any other form of artwork that I've ever done. And I've probably already put 10 times the hours into it of any of the others, and it's just, it's been pretty amazing. I don't know the best, I don't have any real great way to put it other than that. It just, you know, I feel like everybody has to find their one thing that they're truly passionate about, and you know, not necessarily just a blanket item like, say, artwork. And there's so many different types of artwork.
Yeah.
And when I stumbled across this, something just clicked, and this was my thing.
It's challenging for you, something different, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't seen it before.
I joke about it, you know, the people get paid good money to straighten out metal, and I just like to bend it all up.
There you go. I like it.
That's kind of my thing.
Well, how did you get your first machine? Can you tell me a little bit about what happened there?
So,
how did you start?
Well, I guess we'd have to back it up a little bit. You know, like a lot of people, once you get into adult life, things get in the way. Kids, I have a beautiful wife, 3 kids. 2 of them are very rambunctious little boys.
Uh-oh.
And so, you know, with that and having a family and all of those things, the money for toys and stuff like that isn't always there.
Yeah.
So, I was actually building a truck for my nephew, and I said, hey, I want to bead roll a couple of panels. And I had this cheap entry-level 18-inch woodwork fab bead roller. And so I had him order me one of those motor kits from Eastwood or whatever. And
all great companies, by the way. Good companies.
There's different levels of things, and that was a good place to start.
Yes, sir.
Is the best way I could put it.
Yes, sir.
And so I got this stuff, and you know, had maybe $500 wrapped up in this little junky bead roller, and I built a stand, and I built a wood table for it, and started doing a little bit of artwork. And once I figured out that, you know, hey, I actually have a little bit of a knack for this, maybe we can do something with it. But I didn't have no money. That was the problem. I didn't have no money to buy a nicer roller, a bigger one that could do more stuff.
Telling me, I started out with a Pro Tools machine. Well,
exactly.
I started out with an Eastwood machine, hand crank machine, which I still have, and then I went to a Pro Tools machine because I couldn't afford a Mittler, and then I finally got another.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that's what it, you know, it's just a progression up to where you want to be. But like I said, I didn't have the money for that Mittler, but I had this little 18-inch roller. So, and I remember it was, I looked last night while I was sitting in the hotel room. It was about 15 months ago. I made a post on the personal Facebook page. I said, hey, I'm starting to do this bead roller art. You know, this is kind of my GoFund myself. If you're interested in anything, let me do it for you, because I want to buy this Mittler machine, and this is what's going to pay for it. And it took about 75 panels, somewhere 75, 76 panels.
Wow.
And I made that, what started out as a $150 machine, completely paid for that 36-inch roller. And it was just one of those deals, panel after panel after panel. And, you know, obviously dealing with the size, not being able to do much on a small 18-inch roller, that was a little bit of a battle. But it was just one of those deals where I knew there was no way I could afford it unless I made that cheap little unit do all the work for me and pay for this thing. And that's what we did. I mean, just constantly rolling panels. And then I'll never forget, I actually ordered that first one from you. And I was so excited the day that showed up. I put it together and I thought, man, this is the biggest machine I've ever seen.
I was so excited when you got it. I remember when you finally hit me up and said, hey, it's time. I was so happy.
I was waiting and I think I got to the point where I was still like $100 short. And I told my wife, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have to just come up with this extra $100 because I'm not waiting any longer. I gotta get this machine. And from there, it's just been a whirlwind. I mean, it opened up the ability of what I could do so much. And then, you know, you get to a certain point, once you get the right equipment, the sky's really the limit. I mean, there's so much you can do.
And you've been able to use that tool now to buy even more equipment, right?
Yeah. You know, you just run into different, you grow out of the things that you have. So, you know, a lot of those first panels, I just used one of those the air hand shear to cut them down. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that was the only way I could process panels because I started with, you know, big sheets because that was what was cheaper. And so, you know, I would have hours in just prepping a panel so that I could go in there and start bead rolling it. So, you know, that's kind of progressed into a shear and, you know, now a brake. And the beautiful thing about it is, you know, it's no secret that metalworking tools are expensive, but, you know, the amount of payoff you get from them just by, if you've got the drive to use it and really put your heart into it and do good work, those things will pay themselves off tenfold in literally no time flat.
I've got a good friend of mine, Josh Bullock, and he's got a quote that kind of goes, you know, it's really just the guy that doesn't give up, you know? Yeah. It's the guy that's willing to stay there and just stay there and stay there and just keep going after it. There's no real secret. It's the guy that's the guy that's willing to not give up, you know?
Yeah. And there's no secret that there's parts of this that are not necessarily easy. And I tell people, you know, when they ask me questions and stuff, and a lot of times I think it's just a matter of getting over a few of those speed bumps because there are probably more of those cheap $150 bead rollers laying on a shelf in someone's garage that have been there for years because they buy one and they think, okay, well, it's gonna make metal do what I want. Mm-hmm. And then it doesn't. It does really bad things to them.
It's not kind to them. It warps up real easy.
Oh yeah, it warps up real bad. You get a bunch of really crazy stuff going on.
And when it warps up, it's just because you've overstretched the time.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I tell people so often. Just multiple passes, sneak up on it. You don't have to change everything right away.
No, you don't want to see it happen all at once, because I mean, unless that's what you're going for, you know, and if you need that one shot or that one pass, go for it. Yeah. But I mean, when you're stretching metal, just take your time. Just be careful with it. Just let it do what it needs to do.
Exactly.
Those molecules will move.
And I think one of the reasons why I like to help people learn it so much is, well, I mean, one thing is, I feel like if I can teach it, that proves to me that I truly have an understanding of it. You know, because any artist is going to be their greatest critic. And if I can watch somebody understand it and get it on their own, then that means I truly did understand it, because I can teach you.
And I enjoy that same feeling when I teach my classes. You know, it's being able to spend time with people and see it connect. You know, see that connection.
Watch the light bulbs.
Watch light bulbs.
And there's so many things that, you know, they're just simple little quirks about moving metal with a bead roller in general, that if more people that decided to just try it with even a cheap machine, if they knew those simple things that are just, you know, common to the process, there would be a lot more machines being used and not collecting dust on a shelf.
Well,
that's one of the biggest things to me.
Let's tell them a good resource from that, because you're a part of something that we started a while back, which is I Love Bead Rolling on Facebook. It's a Facebook group we have, and it's something that Steve's been a part of for a while with me, and he's really helped a lot of people out on there, and I think a lot of you guys probably already recognize him from there.
Yep.
But you know, that's a good resource for everyone, and you know, you spend a lot of time on there helping people as well.
And I Love Bead Rolling, it's not necessarily, it has nothing to do specifically with a product. It has to do with the idea behind utilizing these things for, you know, most of it is for artistic nature. You know, taking a bead roller beyond what most people would expect of it, and it's a place to learn. It's a place where people go ask questions. So, you know, when I attribute a lot of what I know to that, because, you know, the first panel that I did was just a mess. It was one of those panels that
you sound like everybody. You sound like me.
Yeah, it was
no different than anyone else.
It was one of those panels that ends up landing your bead roller on a shelf collecting dust. And I made a post on there and I said, how do I fix this? It's just warped, it's tore up, it's bad. And you know, I had somebody, it was Jesse Harris.
Yeah.
He had been to your class.
Yeah.
He took the time to explain some stuff to me, and just a few simple explanations made it click in my head. And from there it was all downhill. And I think that's part of why I get so hell-bent on helping people when they ask, because if he wouldn't have taken that little bit of time to explain to me, you know, this is the basic, this is what you don't want to do, this is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be doing this. I would have that cheap bead roller laying on the shelf, and I wouldn't be doing any of this. And so that's huge to me, and getting more people familiar with it and understanding it. I think a lot of people naturally like it and they want to be able to do stuff like this, but without the right support behind you, the right system of people, and getting yourself in the right room with the right people, it's hard. And that's what I like about that page, because there's so many people and they're so willing to help.
And that's the whole purpose of that page. There's no judgment, nobody cares. It's all about just getting everyone the answers they need and trying to do the best they can.
Exactly. And that's the other thing that I tell people about it, that I love about the I Love Bead Rolling pages. You know, you spend any amount of time on social media where, especially on like a welder's page, and there's some brutal people out there. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you never get with the guys that do this.
No.
I encourage them. You know, there's a lot of new people that'll say, I don't even want to post my work, and I encourage them. I'm like, yeah, post it. It doesn't matter how bad it is, because there's guys just like me that are going to say, well, I see 4 or 5 things that I can tell you're doing that's causing your problem. Try this. And then the next thing you know, those guys are on a roll and they're kicking out work. I'm envious. Mm-hmm. I've had several people do that. I've got some friends that I message with that it all started out because they were having problems with something, and you know, back and forth a little bit. And now these guys are making me feel like they're giving me a run for my money. I'm like,
yeah.
you know, it just takes people that are willing to step out there and give you a hand if you need it.
Yeah, what that group has always been about. It's always just been about just loving, you know, bead rolling. And just nothing more to it. And if you have to come in with a loving nature, and we always expect everyone just to help each other and to be there. And it's worked out really well, and you being involved has really saved that kind of group, because when time gets tough, it's tough sometimes to manage a lot of the different things, and you really stepped in when I needed you to help me. And I do appreciate you doing that.
It's been a lot of fun. You meet so many cool people, and it's just, I get so much excitement out of just watching people figure it out for themselves.
Exactly.
You just got to give them a little bit of a hand, and then away they go.
Exactly.
It really is nice. That's why I kind of started doing some video stuff, because there's just not much of it out there.
Yeah.
And being able to kind of dispel some of those little issues that would cause people enough grief to just quit. You don't have to spend a ton of time giving them everything. Just a few little things, and people can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And like, hopefully some of the tips we gave you guys earlier today, you know,
would
be some of those things that help you out a little bit, you know.
Just simple stuff, talking about die spacing and pressure and smoothness.
Smoothness. Yeah. It's really a key. Well, where can everybody reach you at? Tell us a little bit more about where we can get a hold of you, and how anyone watching that maybe want to get some of your art pieces or do some wonderful stuff with you. Or
so mainly everything that I do is through social media right now. I'm so busy with life in general and doing artwork that I don't have a website or any of that yet, but it's FHP Design on Instagram and on Facebook.
I think that's the best thing to have. I mean, we all got one. So.
Yeah, exactly. And then we did do a while back, 3 weeks ago, we did a YouTube tutorial basically on stencil dies with the Mittler roller, and how to combat a couple of the problems that new bead rollers run into. What I did was I took one of the most asked questions from all the people that messaged me, and that's kind of what we focused on. And and it's FHP Design on YouTube also.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to be able to do some more of those, talking about stuff like pressure, die spacing, doing more with the stencil dies and the tipping die, doing some outline work, and trying to dispel some of those myths so that people aren't afraid to jump on one of these machines and make cool artwork.
Yep.
So.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Appreciate it. And your link and everything will be all in the description, and we'll get everybody's link there. And what do you got going over there? Did it look okay? Does it look
We're getting there. I
still want to keep messing with it a little bit?
I didn't jam the wheels out yet, but I got a pretty solid body line going on. Everything's going good there.
That's pretty much the main thing, right? That body line.
Yeah, where that top body line curves over.
You gotta get it in there just right on the C10s. But thanks everybody for watching, and you can check us out at mittlerbrothers.com, or you can go to his Facebook or my Facebook or any of our Instagrams, Jamey Jordan, and it's all the links and subscribes. Everything will be at the bottom, and like and do all that. And Jeff's giving me the thumbs up and telling me I'm doing a good job there to tell you people that stuff. So hopefully we can get it done. Thank you. What are we doing here?
Smash that like button. No, that's not how we do things, you know?
I just feel like if you're gonna do it, you're gonna do it anyway, and I don't really want you telling me what to do. Yeah. I don't know.
That's what I love about it.
And then I feel like when I do it, I just feel weird.
He's like,
it's whatever. It's Jeff's thing. It's not my thing.
Yeah.
Don't you tell me how to live my life.
Just leave it at, you know what, if you want to, you know how to like and subscribe. If you want to see more, if you don't, definitely don't hit that button. If you don't want to see more, don't hit the button. That's a bad idea. But if you do, hit the button.
All right.